thinking, I was like, I should ask all my guests on my show to just stand up. just let's play a game. Let's just both stand up. I think that'd be hilarious.
That could go horribly wrong.
Let's break the ice. Welcome, Farah. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to chat to you. It's amazing because I have been interviewing so many men, which is fine because I love men, but it's so nice to have a female filmmaker on the show. So thank you so much for being here. Do you have a drink with you?
I have my drink. It's early in the day, so it's my jasmine green tea.
Oh,
organic.
Organic. Nice. I'm drinking a mango and lychee green tea.
Oh, really?
It's so good. It smells amazing. So it's delicious. Really good. Yeah. So cheers.
Yes.
I need toilet paper, lemons. What we have here?
Security chief, move now!
أحلى بنت في فلسطين.
ماما
What do you want? Hey! We have a system here.
My house is just there. طيب بابا. طيب ولا شيء مش مشكلة بنحل. يلا نمشي.
Alrighty. I read that you left the corporate world in 2016, I think it was, to go and kind of explore a career in the film industry. And to me, that's a really brave and bold move. So I guess I just want to know what inspired that bold segue and what was it about the film industry that captured your attention?
So I basically come from a business corporate background, and it's what I studied at university. So I didn't study film in any formal or informal way either. And my career was I always kind of go investment banking.
Oh, wow.
and then I ran a business for around 10 years as well. So it was business world, and don't get me wrong, I mean I enjoyed it, and I at the time, you know, what I was doing and the information and the travel and the money and, you know, all of that, but then what happened was a few years before I sort of changed the trajectory of my life, I went on a trip to Palestine. Now I'm British, born, raised, educated. My blood, my heritage is Palestinian. I'm 100% Arab in that sense. So I went to Palestine for the first time as an adult around 2013, 2014. And, you know, there's a lot going on in that part of the world, and a lot of injustice that I thought I understood and I knew. I'd read the books, I'd been involved from a charitable point of view, that kind of thing. But really when I went, make a long story short, it changed me. I saw with my own eyes what was happening on the ground there. And so I came back to what I consider my life of privilege, and I felt really frustrated. It was verging almost on depression. And I went back a few times in between, and I started to write therapeutically about what I had seen and I had felt, and began to imagine, you know, as I started to exercise empathy. And I just felt really compelled to tell these human stories that I'd come across over this period and express myself creatively. And, you know, I always joke, well, okay, I'm not good at art. I play the piano, but that's not going to happen. We're not studying, you know, I'm great at karaoke, but, you know, I'm not turning into a singer here. So I really wanted to express myself creatively. I love theater, and I've always loved film. And I was looking at these pieces, and you know, I'm a big believer in what I think it was George Bernard Shaw said: life is not about finding yourself. it's about inventing yourself, basically. I've probably just quoted him completely wrong.
It still sounded good. So
So for me, it was like, okay, I think I want to make films out of these pieces that I'd written, and I kind of just jumped in the deep end. And so I wrote and produced my first 3 short films, and I kind of literally at that point had just, that's it, the ship had sailed. Like, I was so much more interested in that than what I was doing at that point. And yeah, so it was a calling in so many ways. It sounds a bit cheesy, doesn't it? But it was a life-changing trip that led to me wanting to express myself in a creative way and medium, rather than carry on with this sort of business corporate world that I was in. So it was a calling in some ways.
Yeah, congratulations on the present. I was blown away by the story in itself. I think I learned a lot just because I was taken into a little slice of this world that maybe I'm so far removed from, which I am, not maybe I am. And the acting, the performances, the whole concept of the film was just beautiful. So thank you for sharing that for us. Also, you're a first-time director, and you've already had incredible success with this film. So I just want to know, why did you want to tell this story in particular?
Well, thank you. That's really great.
You're welcome.
On you. Yeah, I love that. I mean, again, it comes back to my roots as a Palestinian. So it's basically inspired by my own experience at these checkpoints, and observing other Palestinians at the checkpoints, and talking with Palestinians, dozens and dozens of Palestinians who live this life. Like, it's a fiction film, right? But it is based on this absurd, cruel reality that does exist on the ground. So I've witnessed it, I've experienced it, I've chatted with people about it, and I've made friends with this young man over these years who lives on a road in the city of Hebron. He lives on a road where about 80 meters from his house is a checkpoint. And so no matter where he wants to go, or what he wants to do, who he wants to see, what he wants to get, he has to go through a checkpoint. So sometimes he's going through these 2, 3, 4, 5 times a day. And you can just picture that. It's like, do you know how pissed off and frustrated we get sometimes at an airport or something? Okay, but we know that that's because we're traveling, and it's part of the travel experience, and it's not a discriminatory process. Everybody has to get checked, everybody has to go through it, and it's once, twice, 3, 4, 5 times a year, whatever it is. And you find that annoying anyway, but you go through it for everybody's security, for example. But no, this is the equivalent of every day of your life, numerous times a day, on the street you live on, where you live, or in that area, or you're going to visit your mom at the other side of London, or you're gonna, like having to go, you go to get your groceries from Waitrose, you go through
a simple thing, which should,
exactly. Yeah. And this is where it's not about, your security as an individual who's having to go through this. No, it's because it's part of a sort of illegal military occupation in international law. So you're living for decades under a military rule, where people are basically controlling your movements and where you can go, what you can do, and all of that. So it's inspired by that reality, and this particular young man lives on a road where it's even more severe for him in his life than what I portrayed in the film.
Can you take us, just for anyone who's maybe wanting to write a short film and then sort of get it into production and hopefully maybe end up where you are today, could you, in a very condensed version, because I know it's a massive process, take us through the process of writing a film, and then how do you find the money for that film, and then you've got to find the team and the casting and then the edit, and now you're in festivals and an Oscar contender. So without making this huge, the challenge is to condense it and sort of just talk us through that process. Yeah.
Look, I think that one has to differentiate between pieces of passion, if you like, the thing, and then where you're actually working on something, and in your career that is the bread and butter and your income and okay, and for me, I can only speak to really the pieces of passion, okay, where really I want to tell these stories with depth and meaning for no monetary return, and no, and express myself, but it's exposing a bit of my soul, it speaks to my identity, right? So versus, oh, I've got to write because I work for a company that needs me to write, and my creative juices, and then we're going to do this, and so I can't really speak to that because that's not the world I'm in.
Yeah.
I can speak to to those who want to make a film, and I would say in that case, one of the most important ingredient is make a film that means something to you, because it means something to you, and hopefully has a bigger meaning, a higher purpose in some ways, ideally, because that's what drives me.
Yeah.
And if you're going to make film, you need to be driven, because it has to go, yes, beyond you're going to make money from this, or because of illusions of grandeur, or you want all that recognition, or no, it's got to be because you are going to see this through from beginning to end, because it means so much to you, and it means something beyond you. Okay. And that's where I feel that several things have happened along the way, which is, one, my tenacity, that I would just not give up, that it was like, right, this is going to happen. I don't know how, when, what, where, but it's going to happen. So, you get those emails that make you feel despondent. I'm not one of those people who says, oh, okay, I guess they didn't know. I'll send that follow-up email. I'll be nice and polite. I'll be like, did you mind, confirming that you got this? And don't mean to be a pest, but this has this, this is this important. I'm quite a tenacious person, and I've realized that pays off. It's not to turn into like a stalker or a psycho or no, but you've got to be willing to put yourself out there that little bit more, but usually what allows a human being to do that is because they're driven by something deeper. You won't do that for something you don't believe in. You'll be like, oh, okay, I'm just going to embarrass myself for this, or no. So there's that element of it. So I even from a creative point of view, so you say, from inception of writing something, or you've got to be inspired. There's got to be something that really moves you to write something that has, to get those creative juices going. So again, for me, I can't tell you that I sit down every day and go, right, I'm going to write something now, again, because I'm on a payroll, or no, I've got to go where my creativity takes me. I will always keep notes of things, even if I can't bring them to any inception now, I will put them down, whether it's on my phone or in a notepad or whatever. And now later you become very grateful that you took the time to do those things, because you don't realize how much work you're doing in that process. You're doing a lot of work. You come back and you find loads of notes, and you're like, oh, I've done a lot of the work. Or now in terms of money, again, it's the good news is, having come from a business and corporate background, I had earned money in my life that I could put where my mouth was. It was like I want to adapt these initial writings, or initial and all of that, and I was like, okay, I've got to raise money, but I'm also going to put my money where my mouth was, and that was a privilege that I had earned, actually, having worked for many years very hard. So I got to that place, and then of course I turned to whether it's family, friends, individuals that believed. I'd say in my case, wasn't necessarily in film specifically, even though some were patrons of film in that sense, but individuals who believed in the why of what I was doing, which was you're an artist, you're making film, but that is about stories that have meaning and importance and raise the global social conscience, in that sense. And so they kind of got on board, and they respected the fact that I had put in money as well. So it's always helpful in that sense. And then of course you apply for funding from film funds and all. It's extremely competitive. We did get film funding for the present from the Doha Film Institute, which they're amazing. They're very supportive in general, internationally, not just for Arab themed or Arab filmmakers. And you hustle, you hustle, and and then of course, casting and all of that. I feel like if you're driven with something beyond, the world conspires. So for example, Saleh Bakri, who is the main actor in the film, in the present, he's actually a very seasoned actor. He's been in feature films that have done very well, that have won at Cannes and in numerous other festivals. And when I wrote the script, he's the actor I kept thinking I wanted, and I was familiar with his work. And then I was co-writing the script. So I wrote the story, and then I was co-writing the script with Hind Shafani. She's a Palestinian filmmaker, and she said to me, "Who do you see as this role of Yusef?" And I said to her, "Actually, it's the actor Saleh Bakri." She's like, "Oh, I know him. I'll introduce you." I was like, "Oh, okay." So do you know what I mean? In the end, you're like, "Oh, he liked the script, he liked the simplicity of it." So the fact that he then took a chance on me with my directorial debut and brought so much to that performance and that dignity and that intensity, and he respected the story. He appreciated what it was about. He's Palestinian. He's actually one of the most well-known and most talented Arab actors in Arab independent cinema. And he's been in films that are international films as well. And he got on board, and so I didn't even have to cast for him. It again, the
amazing
comes together. And I'd say also a lot of instinct. You've got to, there's that part, that extra sense that we as human beings have stopped using. I always find I go with instinct, it pays off. It's always, but whenever I go against my instinct, that's when I have regrets and things don't necessarily work out. And so we've got to come back into tune with our instinct, whether it's in pursuing funds or whether it's in conversations or auditions. Or instinct is really, really, it's invaluable in so many ways, and yet we don't use it enough, especially in the art, in this industry.
And as a first-time director, what lessons did you learn on set of The Present that you'll carry through into next productions?
What didn't I learn? I learned everything. So I always quote Stanley Kubrick. He said the best education in film is to make one. I think that is possibly the biggest piece of wisdom in the world of film, because it is so true. You can go, the reason I in many ways I didn't direct my first 3 shorts, and I only produced them and was involved in different ways and wrote and produced, but was because I thought you had to kind of go to film school to direct. I don't know why. I just thought that you just technicals and you just have to. And it turns out I was wrong, and that everyone's saying to me, no, you really don't have to have gone to film school. And I think that's where I managed to kind of go past the precipice and kind of go, okay, I'm going to direct this first film, because I see in my mind the whole world of the present, right? And now for my feature, it's like, I'm going to direct this. Like I see it.
Amazing.
But, really, really, there is no substitute for making a film, right? And that in terms of like educating yourself on how to make a film. Now, in some ways, I realized I dove really into the deep end, because I didn't start off with a film where, it was like 5 minutes long, two sets, or 2 scenes, or 5 scenes, or 2 actors. And no, I had extras, I had children. They say rule number 1, no children. Rule number 2, rule number 3. No, I kind of broke all the rules, not intentionally. It's the story I wrote. I couldn't help it. It's the story I wrote. But it was like a learning curve in the whole process. I mean, beginning to end. And of course, before I doing a masterclass, I'd ordered all the books. I mean, when I decided I was going to direct the film, I mean, it was from months and months before. I was just going deeper and deeper into it. And even shots and angles and all of this. So of course I was kind of studying, if you like, in my own informal way.
Yeah.
But once you're on set, that's where the huge learning curve happens. I think for anyone, it's reality. It's how are you going to deal with this, that, the other, and having a really solid team with you to support, of course, and and putting out fires and all of that. So I learned even simple things about how sound will work. You can read about it and you can study it, but when you're on set, you're like, okay, so I don't actually need to care that there's that noise right now, because this particular scene is going to have music, or that there's no dialogue. So actually, I'm you read about it, but when it's in practice, hands down, makes a world of difference. So I learned just everything, really. Everything you went to film school to study, I learned on this film. Is literally.
And there's only so much theory one can consume. Like, when you're in school, you learn for exams, to write exams, and then I find it all just went gone. But when I did the practical stuff, that's when, because for me, that's how I like to work as well. Then it stuck, and then you learn practical things that you take forward or you let go. That's how you learn.
With everything. Right.
With everything. What do you want audiences to take away from the present?
I think for me, I've always said that as a filmmaker, I want audiences to have an emotional journey. I think that all good films should give audiences an emotional journey. But I do want the film to leave people contemplating, what a life like Yusef and Yasmin's is like, what it means, what are the human dynamics required to cope and deal with a life like that. And I would like them to ask if they would accept such a thing for themselves. Because like I said to you, I am not interested in making films just for the sake of entertainment alone. I want to make films with depth and meaning, and it was Alessandro Inarritu, the director, who said, raise the global social conscience. That's what I feel my work has to have an element of. And so I would be happy to know that if my film has left people contemplating and asking themselves, would they accept it for themselves? That's great.
As a director or as a person in life, what is the best piece of advice that you've ever been given?
Well, the best piece of advice that I use, that it's on the cover of a book, and I read the book, and the book is a nice book, but really, honestly, it's all in the cover, is feel the fear and do it anyway. And I really believe that. Feel the fear. Fear is not a bad thing. It's not your enemy. And they always say, anything you ever want is on the other side of fear, right? I believe that. So for me, it's feel the fear and do it anyway. Feel it and do it. Don't let that be what holds you back. So I live by that in so many ways. And every time I'm feeling that fear, I go, okay, all right, that's it. I feel it, but I'm still gonna do it. It's still gonna happen. Still gonna jump, and look, at the end of the day, no one gives a crap. Okay, we're all gonna die. That's how I see it. And you are much more important in your head than anyone else thinks you're important. Okay, so it's like move your ego out of this, because a lot of what holds us back in life is perception. What are people gonna think? What if I fail? How is this gonna appear? And that's why so many people don't do certain things. Yeah. But the truth is, it's mostly in your head. No one actually cares about you as much as you think they do. They really don't. Everyone's got their own issues to deal with, their own inner voice, their own complexes, and their own, you know what I mean? So actually, who cares if you fall on your face? Who cares? Just, okay, get back up. You look around, is anyone looking? It's like, when you trip on the street.
Yeah.
You see, who cares? Who cares? You tripped. Who cares? So it's just this feeling of my advice is just, who cares?
Yeah.
Go for what it is that you want to do, and shed other people's opinions, and you'll get to a place where you will be happy with who you are when you look in the mirror.
If you could break the ice with anyone, meaning have a drink with, past or present, who would it be? and why?
You, of course.
Ah,
Of course.
thank you. You're so
Oh,
sweet.
man. Wow. Frantz Fanon, Malcolm X.
Mm.
You know, God, there are so many people that I would love to sit down with and I mean just pick their minds but I mean, I think in the place that I'm in, where I'm making films, and then, you know, very specifically sort of on the Palestine world, I would look to people like, yeah, I'd say Malcolm X and Frantz Fanon. And Frantz Fanon, his essay writing on colonialism and these things are, you know, they're very close to my heart, and like I said, as my sort of my heritage and identity as a Palestinian. That's, I mean, we could just list the whole bunch of.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect.
Like, here's my bookshelf. Let me tell you. So yeah, I've got my bookshelf here. So, you know.
Yeah, this has been an absolute pleasure. Really, really it has. I've so enjoyed chatting to you. Thank you for giving me so much of your time. And
it's a pleasure, really. We'll touch base soon, I hope.
Definitely. Thanks, Farah.
Guys, thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more inspirational videos just like this, then don't forget to subscribe, which you can do by clicking right over here. Also, leave us a comment in the section below and tell us who you guys would like us to break the ice with next.